Good evening again, everybody. For those of you just come in, welcome, and I hope you enjoy this. I'm Kurt Bovensee, Public Works Manager with the City of Troy. Public Works Manager, that means I'm in charge of streets, drains, and the parks. So how many first-timer for public forums do we have tonight? All right, that's exciting. So how this works is I'm going to give about a 20-minute presentation, give you some information on what staff has come up with. The idea here is to take away from ideas from you, because what we're looking to do is we're looking to create a dog park, but we don't want it to be the staff of City of Troy's dog park. We want this to be a community project, and we definitely want input and involvement for the community. And we'll get in depth in that during the presentation. So if I could just remind everyone, if you can turn your cell phones to stun, and we'll start the presentation. So I am a dog owner. I have 2 dogs. I've had dogs my entire life, but this is not my idea. This is something that has been around the community for quite some time. As you can see, 19% of the survey takers during our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which is a 5-year plan, in 2007 to 2012, said that dog park was important to them. And we saw a dramatic increase in our most current plan, which is going to City Council on January 26th, the 2015-2020 plan. We saw a real big increase of our constituents saying that it's a little bit higher demand. Not only that, we have a lot of dogs registered here in City of Troy, and probably that number is higher than what it was last summer, since the Oakland County went around and did an audit this summer. I don't know how many. I see some smiles, so we probably had some people affected by that, but 500, it's over 5,300 registered dogs in the City of Troy, so we've got quite a few dogs in the City of Troy. So with all that said, staff took an opportunity to say, okay, we've got a demand from our constituents that a dog park is important, but you know, what's important in a dog park? What's around us? So we took a field trip to the surrounding dog parks. This is within the 20 miles around the City of Troy. I'll introduce Steve again here in about 15 minutes. So the 20-mile radius of dog parks. Some of them were really nice, and some of them weren't so nice. You know, and we took ideas of what we liked about them, or what we thought our constituents would like, and what we thought our constituents wouldn't like. The closest one, which is in Royal Oak, down on Campbell, is a smaller park, not a whole lot of amenities. And then you go way up to number 4, which we dubbed that as the Disneyland for dogs. That's Orion Oaks. Beautiful dog park, very big, walking trails, lots of amenities. When we looked for the site to host the dog park, there's several things that we looked at. We looked at a piece of land that not only could be used for the dog park, but could be used for other things. Some of you may know the city has recently gone through our vacant parcels and sold some of them. So we looked at a piece of property that might not be marketable. And this particular one has a lot of floodplain and wetlands, so it's not buildable or not marketable to be built. And it was purchased with bond money, so there's some restrictions with that too. So we looked at all of our vacant land, we looked at some of our existing parks, and we thought that this was the best area to host for a couple of reasons. There's not a whole lot of residential around it. You'll see in the conceptual design, the dog park portion is closer to Livernois Road, so what residential is around it, it's far away. We looked at other parks such as Sylvan Glen, you know, because that has a water feature, but there's residentials. We looked at the farm, that has some deed restrictions to it, that what we can and cannot do with it. So we looked at all of City of property, and this is what we came up with. There was a lot of questions in our engagement on Facebook. What happens when this site becomes a park? Well, it gets treated like any other park, really. You know, there's a portion of it that's dedicated to dogs. It becomes mowed regularly. It becomes treated for mosquitoes. It becomes a regular route with our staff to empty garbage. So it's treated like any of our other 16 parks. some of the mosquito concerns is because, as I stated, in the back towards further to the east of the property, it is wetlands and it is floodplain back there, and there's really no opportunity right now to get rid of that water. So we're not looking to develop it, but we will be treating it for mosquitoes if it becomes a developed park. When we looked at the surrounding areas of the dog parks, we said, okay, what's essential for a dog park? You need a parking lot and paved parking lot, and you need a fence. Other than that, I mean, anything else is a bonus. So we divided it up into several different phases. And we looked at cost because, as you'll see here in a little bit, this isn't all city money that's going to be developing this park. It's going to be donated money as well. So here's an example of, these are reclaimed asphalt millings. So when we redo an asphalt road, it's ground up and it becomes reusable material. We're proposing that to be the trail. We have chain link fence. So as I stated, the fence is very important to a dog park. And we have earthwork. There is some earthwork that needs to be done. A detention pond needs to be dug for the parking lot. Anytime you have a pervious surface, you need to detain that water. Phase 2, we start looking at amenities, such as a shelter. Phase 3, we start looking at bathrooms. And phase 4, we start looking at different types of landscaping options. So we, again, divided this up into 4 phases. Kind of, again, because of the donations, we didn't want to say, okay, we need $500,000 in order to open a dog park, because that's not true. You just need the essentials. Example of some more amenities. And you'll get, this is on a flyer being handed out towards the end of the forum here. This is the conceptual design. This was done by Carlisle and Wortman, who is a contractor for the city of Troy, a planning consultant. We took these very similar ideas to Orient Oaks. They have a large area and they have a small area. Large dogs, small dogs. They also had 2 of those areas for rotating fields, and we thought that was pretty important for maintenance reasons because we're not going to add additional staff to maintain this. So we had to look at creative ways on how to maintain it. So if we allowed the property or the area to rest naturally, we wouldn't have to put that maintenance. So that's the reason why the 2 different areas. You'll see the parking lot, and you'll see a lot of the amenities that we talked about in phases 2, 3, and 4 here. I'll point out that, as I said in the beginning of the conversation here, that this site was chosen because it's part of a bigger picture. And part of that bigger picture is it provides future recreational opportunities to the east. And that blue line going through it is the Trails and Pathways plan that we presented to City Council on the 15th of December at the same time the dog park was presented. So that's a big project. That's been number 1 on our surveys since the last 2 master plans as well. So now we get into the cost, which is probably the biggest pill to swallow. We're looking at a total of $327,000 for phase 1. That, again, basically is our parking lot, the detention pond for the parking lot, our trails within the dog park, and our fencing. We put some timeline together, and we'll get into this when we start discussing as groups. This is city staff idea of completion. Again, it all is dependent on how much funds we raise and how fast we can, but our goal is to have some sort of groundbreaking this July, and that's coordinated with the city's 60th birthday party this summer. The city is turning 60 this year, so that's coordinated with that. And then throughout 15 and 16, we'll continue our fundraising, and what we expected completion would be summer of 2016. When I went to city management with the idea of developing a dog park, it's pretty common that whenever you develop recreational leisure services that there's grant opportunities available. And most of those grant opportunities are 80% outside funding, 20% inside funding. However, there is no real grant opportunities for the development of a dog park. There's no MDNR trust fund or anything like that we can really go to and get that 80%. However, it was presented to council that 80-20 is a good method to get this park developed, and that's what we're going with. So that takes donations. And that's where the public engagement comes in, and one of the reasons why you're here tonight is because we do have some questions that you guys can help us out with on how the best ways to raise some of these funds. And Steve Toth, who I said I'd introduce, 15 minutes, and I think I'm pretty close. 12 minutes, okay. Steve Toth is on our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and he's taken the position to chair what we're calling the Development Committee of the dog park. Steve has a pretty crucial role in this, where the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and the Development Committee has really become the face of this project. The city staff is going to do a lot of the behind-scenes work, but your face of this project is going to be the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and the Development Committee. All right, Steve Toth is going to introduce the forum questions and get you guys excited on how to participate.
Thanks for coming tonight. The paper will be with you in a moment. I wanted to share one thing. Many of you I know, and there's a lot of new faces that I don't know. I came from the background as the director of the Boys and Girls Club. I was the executive director for 16 years. And I had the enjoyment of working with the community to raise $3 million, nearly $3 million, to build that brand new facility that's on John R., just north of Big Beaver. And it took the community, the leadership of our board, the volunteers, and the community to come together to make that a success. And tonight is going to be a start of another project similar to that. For this to be a successful project, the staff have done a lot of hard work. They've done a lot of homework. They've given us some numbers to work with, and I think they're very realistic numbers. But in essence, a committee of 2-3 people will not raise the money necessary for a park. It's going to take a lot of you to participate, to help and be the energy, to make this happen in a very timely fashion. So as we are doing some work to get you engaged, part of it is I'm hoping you find some energy and some interest to be part of this process, to make new friends, to realize that we're building a dog park not just because we don't have one, it's because we now hear that there's a lot of citizens that do want a dog park, number one. We know we don't have a downtown, but guess what? We have another area where we can socially engage with other folks who have dogs that want to come and use it for exercise or to be social. So there's a lot of things that are going to be a very positive byproduct that I think will be a great spin-off. And I'm hoping that you all today will feel that you'll be part of the energy to get this started. I'm hoping that before you leave, we'll answer your questions. And in essence, where we've talked about a dog park, I want you to feel like there's going to be some movement now, that there's going to be something happening that will be very exciting in the city of Troy. So I'm going to keep it easy. I'm going to keep it light. We have only 4 questions to work with today. We're going to share some of them. We're going to put some priorities to some of them so that the staff who've done the homework can go back and say, the information we're working with is coming from you, because this will be your dog park. We pay them to do some of the initial work and some of the follow-up, but this is a reflection of you. And I'm hoping for those who can't be here, we are videotaping so that those who can't be here will be able to understand what's going on and we can move forward. So, question number 1. What are the amenities that you would like to see at the dog park? And please realize this. We don't want just a plain old dog park. I'm talking to many people now. We don't want a fence and a grass area. We want things that helps with our social engagement, to make it fun for the dogs, make it fun for the families. So would you now spend the next 2-3 minutes talking amongst yourselves, what amenities do you really feel are important for this dog park that we're going to be building shortly? Okay, could we, I hate to stop this energy, but we don't want to stay till midnight either. This is an area that brings out a lot of discussion and a lot of different views. And what I'd like everyone to do is choose 1, 2 if there's a new idea of what you think is value to this question. And as I go into reverse order, if your ideas have probably been repeated earlier, don't have to repeat anything. We want to move along. But I know that this is an important matter, and the feedback from you is going to be very valuable. So, answer to question number 2. How do we keep the dogs safe?
We are suggesting publicized rules of dog conduct, perhaps even owner conduct as well, and formal channel of support when there are persistent problems. Just leave it at that.
This table?
Chris? Well, we thought of different ways of maybe having a barrier of entry where they need to have a key card or something on a dog tag to get in. And then another thing was maybe changing the parking as it is on the picture because it's really close to the road. And we were talking about how dogs sometimes get out of the car and they're excited to be at a dog park. If they're really parked right next to the main road, that could be a safety issue.
Okay. Or we may be talking about more fencing.
Yeah.
That's an idea that I haven't even thought about. That's a very good new idea. Rosemary?
Hi, Steve. Yeah, we talked about the signage as well, that if we can perhaps have some sort of credit card style barcode, that we would know that that dog has a license. In the license requirement, you must have the appropriate shots. And that way it would help with the signage as well, that you cannot get in the park if people can disregard signage sometimes if they're not a good citizen, but if you could get some style of credit card with a barcode on it, maybe you could get in the park that way.
But I'm hearing in part you're saying, I never even thought about, dogs have to have all their shots before they get, participate.
So vaccinated, rabies, and kind of cough.
And that's going to be an item that has to be put into consideration. Who's speaking here?
Well, everything has been mentioned except our original idea, which is about a video camera, just to set it there to keep an eye on things.
Okay.
Just set it up to it.
That's a new idea. I appreciate hearing that. Who's next over here?
We just had one thing to add, which would be that once people become a member, that there's some sort of education that goes about proper dog park etiquette, just so that everyone is on the same page, pamphlet or a video or something of that nature.
Mm-hmm. I see on your sheet about reporting aggressive dogs. I think that's one of the concerns I keep hearing from some of the tables as well. How do we handle situations like that? And I don't have an answer yet. No one does. But that's why we're trying to seek ideas from you folks. Jim?
Yeah, of course, the double gates, that's one thing to do it. And then picking up on what they've already talked about, we said, you got to enforce owner responsibility somehow. I have a daughter that uses a dog park in Minneapolis, and they have benches and all these amenities and what have you. And what happens is these people get to socializing, and their dogs are all fighting, and the people are just sitting there. So, but you need to enforce it, not just have a list of rules. There's got to be some kind of, and I don't know if you enforce that with a policeman, or if you have your residents report on their fellow residents, turn them in when they're doing it wrong, but you got to solve that problem. That's a big problem.
It sounds like when we're talking about raising money for the park development, we're also talking about how to, I think one of the issues is this, how do we monitor the park so we deal with these situations? And this is one of the reasons I think as we're participating here, hopefully some of you are willing to be on that committee to help us put that into a more tight perspective.
We have two things really. Limit the number of dogs per person, so maybe 2 or something, not people showing up with 6 dogs and they can't control them. And then obviously self-policing the aggressive dog issue. That's the big problem.
And if they can't, who deals with it?
Good question. Don't have the answer. Well, question again.
The one thing that we didn't hear so far is a release area. You would enter a pen, and then there would be another gate to enter into the dog park area.
Okay.
So our table came up with an idea very similar to the very first one, where everybody has like an entry pass, like a scan system on a card. Maybe you wear it on a lanyard. And you've qualified, your dogs have been immunized, but also temperament tested in order to be allowed to get into the park. You do that very similar to any of these doggy daycare or stay places. You know, that you've got to go and you take your dog and they get, by a trainer, they get temperament tested, meaning that do they get along with other dogs, you know, as soon as they meet each other. So that can easily be done. We have so many doggy daycare places in Troy.
So do we do that with volunteers or do that staff? It'd be an interesting question to follow up with that.
Do we have any dog trainers in or owners of businesses that could you answer that question? Maybe for the group is how can that be done and is there a process?
Logistically, I would say, depending on how many people are going to need to do this, initially that could be prohibitive just because of the number of people, and if you only have a couple people that are doing this. But another way to handle it potentially would be to require a canine good citizen, a passing canine good citizen test, which there are plenty of evaluators in the area. But that's an idea, and it's an inexpensive thing to do, and that is a American Kennel Club program that the idea of which is you pass 10 items there, and one of which is you have to be on leash and meet another dog.
I like it. So again, thinking out loud, because that's what I do a lot. Taking Barb's group's idea of having some sort of evaluation done, and knowing that there's a process, but also knowing it could be a lengthy process, saying, okay, 3 strikes you're out, or 3 complaints you have to go through this course in order to continue your membership. So not suggesting, not going right off the bat and suggesting that every dog is aggressive, but if there's a situation, making them go through this course. Yeah.
I've been part of testing for CGCs and therapy dogs, and I have had dogs that have done that. And unless they've changed it, the dogs are always on leash. And it's a completely different thing at a dog park when you have dogs off leash. In my opinion, you can have a dog pass therapy dog and CGC and not get along off leash with other dogs. To me, I don't think it would make any difference. The dog is always on leash during these tests.
But the difference, I would say, is just, for me as a trainer, the difference is are the people willing to put work into their dog? Are they a dedicated owner? Because you're right, the CGC is 100%, TDI is 100% on leash, but I would also say the reverse is also true. You might have a dog who does wonderfully off lead,
Right.
and does not do very well on leash. So, with other dogs. But what he's suggesting is, that if you have a dog with a complaint, then that might be a way to vet them, the owner and the dog, before allowing them back in.
I participated in a dog park in Davison, and the acreage for the dog park was probably about 5. And they had separated the dog park into 3 sections with adequate signage for all 3 sections. And the first one was labeled small dogs, timid dogs, or older dogs. And it was up to you to decide if you had a dog that fit that criteria, you would go in section 1. And then it gave a weight range for medium-sized dogs, maybe from 20 to 50 pounds in section 2. And it was up to you, how well does your dog fit into section 2? Maybe it belongs in section 1. And the third gate fenced-in areas for larger dogs over 50 pounds. But again, it was a suggestion. If you had a dog that was under 50 pounds but thought it could run with the big boys, that was the owner's decision, that their smaller dog was able to have a lot of fun with big labs or other dogs. And it worked out well. People were good citizens and were able to supervise themselves. Now I can do further research to see if there's always the bad citizen out there, but that's how it worked in this one dog park that I helped raise funds for.
Great. Barb? I have a question. Let me let Barb, she was trying to share something.
Has anybody here adopted a dog? Okay, have you ever had to bring in an existing dog to see if it okay, is compatible with another dog. It's always done kind of off leash. You know, they've got kind of an extended line, they can pull it back.
We work with rescues. That's not how it's done with rescues, I can tell you that. Rescues introduce dogs on leash always at first.
Always at first. But there's a long, yeah, that's right. There's a long leash. And then they let them off leash and let them hunt around a little bit if they seem compatible.
They do. And most
Yeah.
dogs, actually, the fellows, one
Thank
of the
you.
things I was hearing was that dogs are on leash together. Generally, they're not. It's actually the opposite. When you restrain a dog, they tend to pull and they act differently than they do when they're free and loose. And they tend to get along with other dogs better when they're off leash than they do when they're on leash. So if you watch people walk through the street and they have two dogs approach each other on leash, you'll see them lunge at each other often. And people pull back, and that just reinforces that whole lunging thing. When they're in a dog park, they turn around, they sniff each other's behinds, and then off they go.
The thing I'm thinking about at this stage is this will probably be an easier task after we've been in operation for a number of months or longer. I think the staff realize, and probably we need to look at volunteer help, is in the early stages, we'll need a lot of folks to maybe be part of this process to guide those who are new to this and help so that we can get that transition going into an active dog park with hopefully very little issues. Not that we could ever get away from those issues, but hopefully we could solve most of them. We need to move on. Sorry.
Good ideas. We spent some serious time here.
Sorry.
They took control. Sorry, Don.
No worries. No, I just wanted to say we kind of had the idea that a weekly or frequent fence check along with the spring-loaded self-locking double gate. We've been to a lot of dog parks where either accidentally or unknowingly people leave the gate, one or both of the gates open. So we thought that would be something that would help keep the dogs safe, as well as this probably doesn't seem like it falls under safety, but in terms of waste pickup and making sure that the dogs that the area is clean, the more places you have to put or that you can grab a bag, the better off and more likely we think that you'll be to clean up after your animal. So, for example, at Orion Oaks, they've got those PVC posts everywhere, and people bring in their used grocery bags and throw them in there, and they're usually pretty close to being handy if you need to pick up waste if you didn't think to bring a bag ahead of time.
Dog parks have bags tied along the fence.
They have what?
Bags tied along the fence.
The bags are tied along the fence. Great. Sounds like there may be some opportunity for some volunteering to help with this. This is not going to be a very small dog park. It's going to be hopefully a very active one with a lot of amenities.
I don't think Steve means putting out the fresh bags as far as volunteering. I think he means picking up the full bags.
Would you go to the next question on that? We know that this is going to be more than just a plain Jane dog park. And most dog parks with good amenities are going to result in some sort of a fee. So as we're talking about fee, we're really talking about membership. This is something that we want to be proud of. We know there's a balance. We want to provide a lot. We want to be able to provide future amenities when an opportunity comes along. But at the same time, the fees that we charge, we want to make it practical so it's a fair price. So, question is this: how do we become a member of the dog park? That's part of your question. And the second point with that is, how do we handle that membership? How do we control that membership? There's different ideas from different locales. I know we already had some ideas from Rosemary, from her experiences, and some of you may have had some experiences elsewhere. But this membership is a way of controlling who gets to use the park. There's a fee involved. So how do we become a member, and then come what you think is a fair range of what you think should be a membership to this dog park? So you got a few minutes to talk about it and put it on paper.
You reconsider the term member, and instead maybe say, how do you? I think member already presupposes that this park is going to require, like, personally identifiable information.
Yes.
If that's something that's mandatory, then fine. But if it's not, and that certainly isn't the case in some of the county dog parks, I think that you might want to expand the idea beyond just simply membership to how do you pay for entry to the park?
Correct.
Something along those lines.
Do you hear that question? How do we maybe not be a member? How do we pay to be able to use that dog park? I mean, this is a dog park that may be primarily used by Troy residents, but most of the dog parks in most other communities outside of the county charge a different fee for those who don't belong to Troy. Again, I don't want us to be prohibitive, but I want to look at a fair price that says that we can balance this out, that says that expenses are being met as well as we are proud that we have a membership to this dog park. So would you spend a few minutes? Okay, I appreciate your spending some time on this. On membership, what is a membership? What does it cost? We're going to start in the middle row this time. One or two main items. Again, this is a reflection of you. You represent Troy. We know there are other things happening at other parks in Oakland County or in other states, but in essence, we're Troy, and we want to utilize your ideas, your thoughts, your priorities, and as we go through this process. So, what does a membership mean to you?
Well, we thought it would be appropriate to have a Troy resident fee of $25 a year, but also let non-residents use it for maybe a different fee, perhaps $35 a year. And another important thing is that you, at some point in the process, show proof of your residency to get the resident registration fee. Oh, I didn't have it close enough to my mouth.
Okay. So residency is going to be important. Proof of residency. Who's going to take this table? Yes. Oh, they won't let anyone else take a turn here.
We had said the resident and non-resident fees. We'd also said, you would want to potentially increase the fee for each additional dog because you want to make sure that each dog that a person has is licensed and meets those requirements, and also for there to be some sort of either legal terms of limits of liability for the city, and also the terms under which people will agree to use the park. Perhaps similar to the Canine Good Citizen Pledge type of a thing.
So you're licensing the dog, not the owner, not the vehicle they show up in. You're licensing the dog, correct? Did I understand that correctly?
We meant both.
Both. Okay, so owner and dog?
Well, if you have someone who's got 3 dogs that they bring to the park on a rotating basis, you would still want to be able to, know who the person was, and also that the dog has a right to be there.
Good. No, that's great. Not that I'm trying to steer the conversation, but I'm trying to steer the conversation. I mean, that's the information that we want to know is, that's one of the major questions that we're struggling with. Who do we license? Do we license the vehicle that shows up? Do we license the dog? Do we license the owner? Because we've got different things. We got 10 dogs showing up in one car. We've got one owner showing up with 5 dogs, or we've got memberships of 5 dogs. So from a revenue standpoint and for a fairness standpoint, who do we register? Not the car. Good. So because our Oakland Parks registers the vehicle. Yep. Good. Yeah.
I would say the owner and the dog, because in Michigan, the owner is responsible for...
Can you talk really loud? This one.
Okay.
This is where that came.
In Michigan, the owner is responsible for the actions or inactions of themselves and their dogs. So you want to include the owner in on that, not just the dog.
Good. Good. Okay.
But if an owner wants their neighbor to take the dog because they can't go, but the neighbor can, again, how do we control that situation? Hold on. Oh.
This would, just a wild ass idea. This would probably be really inexpensive to do, but I'm thinking of some sort of little fob. Again, this may not be practical, but some sort of little fob that could go on the dog's collar that could, should the dog be found and you can't find the owner, scan it in, and then you know who it is, with all the owner's information on it.
Okay. It's another way of control.
And it could be on the keychain to get in. Again, may not be something affordable at the beginning, but may not be affordable at the beginning.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, so.
Your group is shrinking.
Yeah, I know. Well, you need to go to the city clerk or somewhere and prove that your dog has his shots and what have you, prove that you're a resident, and also identify how many dogs are going to use this park, because it has to be by individual. You can't let somebody have 5 dogs, the same prices as one. And then you need to have some way to identify yourself to get in there, either into the park, either a key fob or a gate card or something like that. And this gentleman here says, we definitely don't want any stickers on the cars, any of that. And as far as cost goes, you can't say, I can't tell you how much people should be willing to pay right now without knowing what are they paying for, what are the amenities, you have to balance it
I think
out. If it's bare bones ballpark, maybe it's $50 a year. If it has all these amenities, maybe it's $200. I don't know.
I don't think it'll be 200, but we're trying to find a comfort range. Part of it is as we put this together, what are we comfortable with?
Okay, so we were thinking about one of the big things is that the dogs have to be vaccinated. So at any membership thing, you have to be able to prove your vaccination, and that has to be done on an annual basis. So the membership, therefore, has to be annual. And then from a membership thing, I think the idea over there about the person and the dog is a smart one. And so you'd have like $25 a year for a resident, and if they have 2 dogs, it would be $30 or something, right? And if that way you've limited it to 2 dogs per person too, so that way they can control the dogs.
And the last item I see on your...
Oh, and a minimum age for an owner, okay, for the person taking the dogs there. Really, you got to have someone that's a little more responsible, so maybe 16 or 18, something like that, instead of having some 10-year-old there with their dog.
I never even thought about it until you just mentioned. That's a very important thought.
Excellent idea. A lot of parks that we saw in their rules and guidelines was you were limited to how many dogs you could bring as well. So not only age that you have to be to have control or command over your dog, but is how many dogs you can bring.
Okay, we're just told that they have nothing new at this point. Anything new from this table?
Not really sure if this would be feasible or not. Again, everybody's kind of concerned about that, but we were wondering if there could be some kind of a gated entry with some kind of, where if there is proof on your car, a sticker on your car that you can get in, and the gate goes up and you pull into a fenced parking lot that is safe for you to get your dog out of the car. And in order to get that sticker, you would pay an annual fee. And we were thinking $25 for the first dog, maybe an additional sum per dog, and then non-residents $50, or a daily fee for visitors of $5. We also were trying to figure out maybe like when you park in downtown Royal Oak and there's a parking, a parking machine or meter. But we were thinking, you're trying to manage your dog and your things to take into the park. Would you really want to be fussing with something like that? Probably not. But we were trying to figure out a way to tie it into you coming in and parking. Not really sure how that's going to work out. We love the key fob idea and the card.
Potentially, as we're looking at this, and if you looked at the diagram, there is a trail that goes through the middle of the park. So as we look at controls of the dog park, it's still going to have, we'll have people wanting to have access to that site for non-dog park usage as well, outside the fence, outside the park itself. So as we're looking at that planning, it incorporates 2 pictures. Those who want to use the dog portion, the dog park portion, and those who may not. Who in this group? Anything?
Yeah, sorry guys. Okay, so we had a couple ideas. One, just in general, we at the table think that Troy Park should be open and welcoming And the idea of a resident versus non-resident fee seems to indicate that the tax dollars then are subsidizing, Troy residents' tax dollars are somehow subsidizing what's going on in the park. We like the idea more of having an annual membership versus a day membership, with the thinking being that if you're a Troy resident, you're much more likely to probably buy that annual membership at perhaps a discount versus somebody who's a non-resident who might pay the day pass and thereby, maybe you're going to make up that differential without saying that you need to be a Troy resident to visit a Troy park or pay a premium fee. We also had the idea of using a card system as opposed to a key fob, just primarily because card systems and vending machines that vend card systems are pretty inexpensive and easy to implement. So you could then buy a annual card from the vending machine. You don't need to have staff there, and that card would get you access to the gated areas. Or you could buy a day card as well. And if you forget your card at home, you can buy a day card, and it's only $5. Well, and I guess I have the issue with people indicating that you need to have your dogs vaccinated and you need to have rule sets, in the sense that the state of Michigan and the city of Troy have laws in place for all parks already. If your dog gets off a leash in any park and bites someone, there's already laws in place that protect people from those incidents. And I think implementing additional requirements for taking vaccine records to the clerk, I think it's adding a lot of paperwork and cost that is going to be very difficult to implement, is my concern, perhaps.
Okay. Quickly, we're running out of time.
I don't think you need to take additional paperwork. All you need to do is write down and show your Oakland County license, dog license, and that takes care of it.
The Oakland County dog license requires some information already for rabies. Okay, so when the committee starts developing our rules, we'll take that information into consideration. Do we have, let's go to the last three tables here. Any new ideas or suggestions? Similar ideas. Anything new? Anything new? Anything? All right, now, the last question.
Before we get to that last question. Before we get to that last question, I think we need a little energy. Can I see a show of hands for everyone that owns 5 or more dogs? No one? Good, because I'm sure you all Troy residents, you weren't allowed to own 5 or more dogs. It wasn't a trick question. It wasn't a trap. No, I'm just teasing.
Kurt, if your dad raised his hand, would you?
Maybe. Yes. Don brought up a good point about subsidizing and not subsidizing, not getting into all the technical jargon, but from a manager at the City of Troy, I'm always being a good steward of public funds. So he brings up some interesting topics about whether non-resident, resident, whether your taxpayers as taxpayers should get a decrease, but truly your tax money isn't going to develop this park, or your tax money isn't going to maintain that park. So just real quick for a show of hands, since Don was one of the last ones to present that, who all thinks that there should be 2 separate membership fees for non-resident and resident? Okay, well, I won't even ask the next question. I got my answer. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. Thank you.
All right, we talked about more of the operational side. As we look at the, Kurt? I still don't remember which is the right button, well, all these buttons here. We're looking at the operations side. When we talk about development committee, we're going to need help for some of you people to volunteer working with the staff with the final rules and guidelines of this operation of this park. How do we make it safe? How do we make it friendly? How do we make sure we take all the points that we can make this the best dog park from an operational standpoint? Now, the last part is we got several $100,000 to raise. And I see some faces change all of a sudden. A couple of smiles change to something different. I think the ability to raise money is doable in this community. We just have to do it together. And so I have, in the area of donations, this is where I need some help. I understand the community somewhat, but there's new things happening out there. So In what ways do you think people will donate for this project? You know, there's a lot of ways we can do this. We could do mailing, door-to-door, online. There's so many different parties, parades, whatever. What ways do you feel we can go to the community of Troy to raise this money? Question number one. Question number two. There are folks who will make larger donations. What do you think are the rewards for somebody who makes larger donations? These donations could be $200. These donations could be $5,000. Could be $50,000. It could be even larger. What are your ideas of how do we reward those individuals to go above and beyond the normal general gift that may come from the public? Please realize we can't go to every single dog owner for 5,300 dogs and say, we want $150 from you, and guess what? We've just raised all the money we need for this project. It doesn't work that way. I think there'll be a revolt in Troy. But if people like this project and there's a lot of energy, they feel there's a lot of quality, they're willing to pay extra one time for this project. So your task, again, as a refresher, how do you think we should approach people to donate or raise money for this project? Number two, what kind of reward should we give to those individuals who are giving any substantial large gift for this project? You got 5 minutes. Go ahead. You could include corporate sponsorship. Individuals, social organizations, service organizations. But we have a six-figure gift range of fundraising. Okay, we are starting to run a little late. I don't want to go too much later. I'm hearing a lot of ideas. Some are great. All of them are great. They're all great. You haven't been first yet, have you, Pete? Okay, folks. We want to wrap this up at a reasonable time tonight, and everything that you don't get a chance to share, but it's still on paper, will go to our committee. So what I'd like to do is hear one or two important views on the area of motivating the donor.
Sell the name to the park, to a corporation or to an individual. I know in talking to the Parks and Rec guy, I found out that if someone makes a donation, about 60%, I think it was, they get to name the park. So if you got a park like this, maybe Delphi or Petco or PetSmart or somebody like that names it. And the other thing is to approach those same businesses, the Petcos and whatnot, because they're more likely to be interested. They do give grants. So Petco has a grant program, and so does PetSmart. So they might be willing to put money towards the park.
Okay. Jim?
I would echo what he just said. I think the companies that have something to do with dogs are going to be a lot better prospects because, you know, some of these other companies, they get hit with charities that may mean more to them than the dog issue. You know, disabled folks and different things like that. So I think anybody that has to do with the you know, Petcos, PetSmarts and all that would be the best bet. As far as how you do it, I think you want to try everything. You know, it doesn't hurt to do your crowdfunding and stuff. Put something in the water bills like we do oftentimes for different things, and you know, have city council people go promote it, whatever, all of the above.
You mean page 2 of the city quarterly newsletter from the Parks and Recreation Department? Who's going to speak on this group?
We took the naming rights and ran with it. We remembered that Comerica Park sold those pavers when they were building, so we could sell those. We could also sell the naming rights to the pavilion separately, park benches, the trail names. And Chris had a great idea of tree purchases in honor and memory of your pet.
Now, the success of fundraising and asking for money doesn't really happen more often with staff asking for money. The success is basically asking money by those who are the lay people or the citizens. So as we're talking about approaching individuals and corporations, and by the way, some of my most sizable gifts at the Boys and Girls Club came from individuals, not necessarily from corporations. So, there's a little balancing act. I think too often we like the corporations, but we can't forget some of the adults and families who've been in Troy that may be interested.
Well, we wanted to, add that, we can further investigate grant opportunities as time goes on throughout the donation process. Also, more dedicated fundraising events with different civic groups around town or with the government, social media events where people can use their dogs to help raise money.
Okay.
And what papers?
The pavers would be paw
Oh, paw print pavers. That's a...
Your dog put in their name and their own paw.
Oh, they could actually put their paw print on there. Oh, that'd be interesting. That's a new idea. Who likes to speak here?
Steve, we had pretty much mentioned the same as everyone else here. We always like the idea of the memorial dog paver. That's a good idea, but knocking on doors has always been effective, whether it's the local vets or PetSmart stores or anybody that has pet supplies in their store. That's always a good way. He's just knocking on doors. But one of it is awareness. The more signage or the more information we can get out to the folks in Troy that we are beginning this process, we can get a lot of people to volunteer, I hope.
Sounds like we need to raise some money just so that we can raise some money. So that's going to be interesting.
Well, everything that we said was covered except donation jars at local businesses.
Okay. Donation jars at businesses. We're going around in a circle this time.
Go ahead, Don. Give it to him. All right, you guys have beaten me down. We had the same ideas as everyone else, just sponsorship of benches, pavilions. We thought maybe for smaller donations we could have names along the fence, like for something that would still give people feel like they got a value proposition in the donation, but not necessarily have a large cost. Tree plaques for memorials, bricks, that kind of thing is basically what we came up with.
All right.
So we thought of, everybody's named everything on our list except for one. And the additional thing that we had to offer is just a series of special events to include the dogs, like dog training days and contests, a doggy parade, different types of dog events where we have volunteers come out and do some neat things, but we, the citizens, and, we pay to participate.
Okay.
Two things that weren't mentioned that we had was for the higher donators would be possibly a lifetime membership to the park. Definitely some sort of plaque identification program to the higher donors. And a digital sign out front. Talk about who were the higher donors, updates that are going on to the park, and events.
That sounds like more than a $3,000 sign to me. Who's speaking at this table? Still, okay.
Yeah.
This is the largest table, so you have lots of ideas.
Most of them were covered. Just to kind of drill down on a couple, talking about an event, we could do something almost modeled after what Clausen does with their Claws and Paws walk, do a dog walk type fundraiser, and approach businesses as being sponsors, where they get a spot on a t-shirt or signage or something at the actual fundraising event. Another type of event might be an auction, silent auction, or otherwise. And another type of event we could potentially do is a bite prevention workshop. Also trying to get the dogs to be well behaved. You could offer so if you could get a CGC evaluator to donate their time and maybe have people pay to come and test their dogs. That's an option too.
So, we've shown a lot of ideas, a lot of energy. I hope that in closing, some of this energy is going to translate to some of you spending some time with me, working on raising money as part of the development committee, but also the development committee is going to work with the staff. Another segment of that committee will be working with the staff on the rules and some of the more operational things. As we look at the fun things that could happen in raising money, it starts from the top down. My first thought is we do wish to look at the opportunity of getting someone to give a sizable donation for a naming opportunity. This committee will be part of my help to do that. The question is who do we want to approach? And it's in our form. You approach that individual not by one person, it's with those who are excited about the park, who can explain it, and have a relationship with that individual. So the opportunity to raise dollars is there. I've experienced it. Some of you have not, but may like to. They may want to be involved with some of the fun activities that we may want to schedule. But before you leave, I would like you to let Ashley or the staff know if you're interested in being on the development committee, and then choose the fundraising side or the operational side. And in closing, I had a goal that I've been sharing. It gets to be a little funny, but I value the social connectiveness this park will have, because the dog park is right in the middle of Troy. If you put a circle that's about 3.5 to 4 miles radius, you've got 85 to 90% of Troy. I mean, this could be the Smith Central Park. This could be a central place where people are going to gather. And my hope is I want to know the day that when two individuals meet, because they bring their dogs down, they start dating, they start getting engaged, and they get married. I want to be invited to that wedding, to the first wedding, because they met at the dog park, regardless of age or time frame, because again, it's about the social connectivity that we're going to provide, not just because of dogs, but it's going to bring the community together. So thank you for your time with me.
Thanks, Steve. Everyone give Steve a round of applause. This is time that he is volunteering. He doesn't get paid. He's on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, so this is all volunteer, and we're very appreciative to have him on our team. To wrap up the donation side of it, you guys all had a lot of great ideas, some that we certainly didn't think of. In-kind service. I didn't really hear in-kind service. That is a form of donation that we could definitely go after. For an example, we buy the fence post and the cyclone fencing, but we have a Saturday work day where we get a group of us and we go out and install the fence ourselves. That all counts towards that 80-20 split, because there's a value on that labor that we can put on. So keep that in mind. We've heard a lot of sponsorships, and I'm gonna call out 3 different numbers. It's going to be 1,000, 2,000, and 5,000. If I could just get a show of hands of a 1,000, an example of a 1,000, 2,000, and 5,000 donation. Okay, so the first example is going to be the naming rights to one of the run areas. So not the park. We have 4 different areas. We have 2 small and 2 large dog areas. A 5-year rights to name that area after someone or your dog. Okay, let me show of hands of 1,000. 2,000. Maybe I should have done higher. 5,000. Okay, but remember, this isn't the name of the park. This is the name of the field, but that's really good. I just want to make sure we're clear, because I had no idea this was going to go this way. So over $5,000 for a 5-year naming rights on one of the areas. Over $5,000. Okay, all right, good to know. What about, a lot of times they have donor boards when they develop a park, platinum, gold, silver. And I have to share this because staff came up with this, and it's kind of corny, but I like it. Platinum Pug, Golden Greyhound, Silver Schnauzer, or the Bronze Beagle. So to be a platinum member, show of hands of $1,000. 2,000. Platinum is the highest. So we're on the donor board. Yep. So we're at 5,000. 5,000. Over 5,000. Yep. Just put your name on the board. Where are you at? Where are you thinking, Cindy? Too much, too little? Too much, okay. Okay. I'm sorry? Less than having an area? Okay, yep, agree to that. Okay, so we're not getting a whole lot of consensus, so I'll go ahead and stop the conversation. That's okay, because in the future, you know, this is one of the ideas behind the public forum is to get your engagement, to get you excited about participating, and that's one of the reasons why we're here tonight, is to get you excited, to get you anxious to participate. We don't have our hand out tonight for money, because that's not what we're here for, but we're here to have our hand out this way to meet you and to have you participate in this process, not only in the ideas, but going out there and fundraising. Is there any questions before I really close this up with how to get involved and how to keep track? Yes.
What if you're talking about $5,000, you got 4 areas theoretically to name people for 5 years, right? What if you get more than, and I'm thinking big, what if you get more than 5,000? They got to wait their turn.
Sure.
I'm assuming. So, that being said, maybe that is an incentive to sell those 4 spots. Gee, be the first one to get it, because otherwise you're going to have to wait 5 years. And they may say, I'll give you the 5,000 in 5 years. But you're going to have to, I'm assuming, keep a running list, right? Is that?
Yep, exactly. Well, we didn't actually plan on keeping a running list, and part of the principle behind crowdfunding is just that. And if you didn't hear the question was, if you have a certain sponsorship level, what if you exceed that? What if you exceed more than 4 people wanting to name the dog park area? What if you exceed more than 1 person naming the park? Well, the idea behind crowdfunding is an old sales principle is you know, get it now because it won't last. And that's the idea with crowdfunding. So you have limitations. Platinum members, you know, let's say we only have 50 spots on the donor board for platinum members. We only have 4 spots on the, for naming rights. We only have 1 spot for the actual naming of the park. Excuse me. So it's a sales technique, but it works in crowdfunding. You have a limited spots so you are the first one, so you secure your spot. You're more amped to say, yep, I'll be that guy or that girl. I think the comment is to coordinate with the Aquatic Center on how they do the dog swim, which is a very successful program. Welcome Kelly Molnar, who's in charge of that program, and she is on our team, so we've got that one covered. Any other questions? Yep.
Do we have any special accommodations for puppies who are trained as leader dogs or paws with a cause or the charitable dog, working dog?
Yep. The question is do we have we thought of making any provisions in the park for leader dogs or paws with a cause? The answer is no, we haven't. Doesn't mean that we can't, though. Get involved and make sure that's included. Question, comments? And just to remind you, I'm the guy that tells the trucks to put the snow in the end of your driveway, so I can take any criticisms too. So I'm prepared. So if you have any questions or comments to that effect, I'm good with it. Oh, you know, not to get off topic, but I have to comment because the City of Troy, if you go onto their web page during a snow event, you can see where you're at in the rotation, and you can see what is done and what's not.
And what's the app thing?
It's not an app, it's on the city's website. It's troymi.gov. Dog park related questions or concerns? Are we excited? Was this a good public forum? Yes? Now, how do we go further? Facebook.com, Troy Dog Park. Engagement there. TroyDogPark.org. Engagement there. Make sure one of the staff people knows that you want to take an intricate role in this process. So see them, and they'll highlight your name. We'll keep in contact. If you want all the emails, we'll definitely send you all the emails. Community project, please get involved because it's really going to be a big deal. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.